Put the scissors down, Carter. Please, baby, just put them down. The 7-year-old boy stood on the marble kitchen counter of the Montgomery estate in Georgetown, his hands shaking as he held the sharp blades inches from his own neck. His brothers, Dylan and Evan, screamed from the corner, their faces soaked with tears. Nanny number 22 had already fled out the back door. The housekeeper was on the phone with 911. And billionaire Marcus Montgomery stood frozen in the doorway, watching his son unravel and realizing he had no idea how to stop it. Then the front door opened. Renee Clark walked in like she'd been there 1,000 times before. She didn't run toward Carter. She didn't scream. She walked slowly to the counter, looked the boy dead in his tear-filled eyes, and said something nobody expected. Your mama's watching you right now, baby. And she's not scared. You know why? Because she knows you're stronger than this moment. Carter's hands stopped shaking. The scissors clattered to the counter. And in the suffocating silence that followed, Renee caught him as he collapsed into her arms, sobbing like he'd been holding his breath for 8 months. Marcus stood there, his heart pounding, staring at this woman he'd hired less than 2 hours ago. She'd just done what 22 nannies, 3 therapists, and he himself couldn't do. But what Marcus didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Renee Clark had a secret connection to his late wife. And when the truth came out, it would destroy everything he thought he understood about the last 8 months. If you've ever felt invisible, like your pain didn't matter to anyone, you need to hear what happens next. Hit that subscribe button because Renee's story isn't just about saving 3 boys. It's about what happens when someone finally sees you. 8 months earlier, Marcus Montgomery had been untouchable. His tech company, Montgomery Global Solutions, was valued at $3.2 billion. His wife, Olivia, was a Georgetown socialite who ran charity galas and kept their family together like glue. Their triplets, Carter, Dylan, and Evan, were smart, happy 7-year-olds who played soccer and loved bedtime stories. Then came that Thursday in February. Olivia had been driving home from Whole Foods on Wisconsin Avenue when a drunk driver ran a red light. She died on impact. The boys, who'd been waiting by the window for her to come home with their favorite snacks, watched the police car pull up instead. They watched their father collapse on the front steps. They watched their entire world end. The funeral was massive. Politicians, tech moguls, celebrities, everyone came to pay respects. But none of it mattered to 3 little boys who kept asking when mommy was coming home. Marcus tried. God knows he tried. He hired the best nannies money could buy. He took time off work. He held his sons while they cried themselves to sleep. But grief had transformed his boys into strangers. They stopped talking. Stopped eating. Then the anger came. First, it was small things. Refusing to go to school. Throwing toys. But as weeks turned to months, the destruction escalated. They trashed their bedrooms. Attacked nannies. Broke everything they could get their hands on. By October, 22 nannies had quit. The boys' private school had expelled them. And Marcus was drowning, unable to reach his own children. That's when he posted the ad that would change everything, seeking experienced caregiver for 3 boys. Must be patient, resilient, and unshakable. Previous applicants have found the position challenging. He had no idea the woman who'd answer had been searching for his family for 8 months. Renee Clark had seen the news about Olivia Montgomery's death back in February. She'd been working for a family in Baltimore at the time, and when Olivia's face flashed across the television screen, Renee's coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. Because 15 years ago, Olivia Montgomery had saved Renee's life. Back then, Olivia wasn't a billionaire's wife. She was a 22-year-old volunteer at a group home for teenage girls aging out of foster care. Renee, 17 and suicidal after years of abuse in the system, had been planning to end her life the night Olivia showed up. Olivia didn't give her a speech. Didn't preach about hope or God's plan. She just sat with Renee on the bathroom floor and said, "I see you. And your life matters more than you know right now." That conversation saved Renee's life. Olivia mentored her for 2 years, helped her find work as a nanny, and became the closest thing to family Renee ever had. Then Olivia got married, moved to D.C., and their lives drifted apart. But Renee never forgot. And when she heard Olivia had died, leaving behind 3 young boys, she knew what she had to do. For 8 months, Renee had been trying to reach Marcus Montgomery. But billionaires don't answer calls from strangers. So when she saw his desperate job posting, she knew it was her way in. Now, standing in the Montgomery kitchen with Carter sobbing in her arms and Marcus staring at her like she was a miracle, Renee made a choice. She wouldn't tell them about Olivia. Not yet. These boys needed stability first, not more emotional bombs. But secrets have a way of surfacing. And this one would tear the Montgomery household apart before it healed them. See, sometimes the people who save us aren't strangers. They're the ones paying forward a debt of love somebody else gave them. If that moves something in your chest, don't just keep scrolling. Stay here. Because what Renee does next will wreck you in the best way. Marcus insisted Renee start immediately. He couldn't risk losing another day, another nanny, another piece of his sanity. So Renee moved into the guest suite that same afternoon, a small room down the hall from the boys' bedrooms. The first night was hell. Carter refused to eat dinner. Dylan locked himself in the bathroom for 3 hours. Evan threw his plate across the dining room, screaming that he wanted his real mom, not some replacement. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his jaw tight, looking like a man barely holding himself together. But Renee didn't react the way the others had. She didn't yell. Didn't threaten consequences. She simply cleaned up the broken plate, sat down on the floor next to Evan, and started talking about her own mother. "I lost my mama when I was 8, she said softly. "House fire. And for the longest time, I was so angry at God, at the world, at everyone who was still alive when she wasn't. You know what I wish somebody had told me back then?" Evan looked at her, his little chest heaving. "What?" "That being angry doesn't mean you're bad. It means you loved somebody so much that losing them broke something inside you. And that's okay." For the first time in 8 months, Evan didn't scream back. He just stared at her, tears streaming down his face, and whispered, "Does it ever stop hurting?" Renee's eyes filled with tears. "No, baby. But it stops feeling like you're drowning. I promise." That night, for the first time since Olivia died, all 3 boys fell asleep without a fight. Marcus stood in the hallway, watching through the cracked door as Renee sat on the floor between their beds, humming a lullaby he hadn't heard in months. It was Olivia's lullaby. His chest tightened. How did this woman know that song? Marcus couldn't shake the feeling. The lullaby. The way Renee spoke to the boys with the same gentle firmness Olivia had. The way she seemed to know things about his family she shouldn't. So he did what any billionaire with resources would do. He hired a private investigator. Within 48 hours, Marcus had a file on his desk. Renee Clark. Age 30. Former foster child. No criminal record. 8 years of nanny experience with glowing references. Nothing suspicious. But then Marcus saw it. A photo tucked into the back of the file. Renee, 15 years younger, standing next to Olivia at some kind of charity event. They were smiling, arms around each other like family. Marcus's blood ran cold. He grabbed his phone and called his investigator. "Who is she? How did she know my wife?" The investigator's voice was calm. Olivia volunteered at a group home back in college. Renee Clark was one of the girls she mentored. "From what I can tell, your wife saved her life." They stayed in touch for a couple years, then lost contact when Olivia got married. Marcus hung up. His hands were shaking. This woman wasn't just some nanny who answered an ad. She'd come here with a purpose. But what was it? Was she trying to honor Olivia's memory? Or was there something darker at play? That evening, Marcus confronted Renee after the boys went to bed. "You knew my wife." Renee froze. Then slowly, she nodded. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to think I had some agenda," Renee said quietly. "I'm here for your boys, Marcus. Olivia saved my life once. This is me trying to save theirs." Marcus stared at her, his emotions a chaotic storm of grief, anger, and something else he couldn't name. "If you hurt them." "I won't," Renee interrupted. "I couldn't if I tried." 2 weeks into Renee's time at the Montgomery house, everything exploded. A video surfaced online. Someone, a former housekeeper with a grudge, had secretly recorded one of the boys' meltdowns from months earlier. In the video, Carter is screaming, throwing glass, attacking a nanny while Dylan and Evan destroy the kitchen behind him. The video went viral. 2 million views in 24 hours. The comments were vicious. These kids are demons. CPS needs to take them away. Money can't fix bad parenting. News outlets picked it up. Morning talk shows debated whether Marcus was fit to parent. Protesters gathered outside the estate gates with signs, "Save the Montgomery boys." Marcus was a mess. He stopped going to work. Stopped answering calls. He locked himself in his office, spiraling into a darkness he couldn't climb out of. Meanwhile, the boys saw the video. They saw the comments. They saw the world calling them monsters. Carter locked himself in his room and refused to come out. Dylan stopped speaking entirely. Evan started hitting himself, saying he was bad, that he deserved to be sent away. Renee found Marcus in his office at 2 a.m., drunk and sobbing. "I've destroyed them," he choked out. "Olivia would hate me for what I've let happen." Renee knelt in front of him, her voice steady and fierce. "You didn't destroy them. Grief did. Loss did. And you know what? They're not broken, Marcus. They're wounded. And wounded things can heal if you stop running from the pain and start walking through it with them." Marcus looked up at her, his face wrecked. "How do I do that?" "You start by showing them you're human too. You stop hiding your grief and you let them see that daddy's hurting just like they are." You ever notice how the world loves to judge broken people instead of helping them heal? If you've ever been that person everyone gave up on, you already know why this moment matters. Don't look away now. The next morning, Marcus did something he hadn't done in 8 months. He walked into the boys' playroom, sat down on the floor, and cried in front of them. Carter, Dylan, and Evan stared at their father like they were seeing a ghost. "I miss her," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I miss your mom every single day. And I'm so sorry I made you feel like you had to be strong when I wasn't strong either." Carter, the oldest, the one who'd been holding his brothers together, finally broke. "It's my fault she's gone." Marcus's head snapped up. "What?" "I asked her to get my favorite cereal that day," Carter sobbed. "If I hadn't asked, she wouldn't have gone to the store. She wouldn't have been on that road. It's my fault, Dad. It's my fault she's dead." The room went silent. Renee, standing in the doorway, felt her heart shatter. Marcus pulled Carter into his arms, then Dylan, then Evan, holding all 3 boys as they sobbed. "No. No, baby, it's not your fault. It was an accident. A terrible, horrible accident. And your mama, she would never ever want you carrying that." For the first time since the funeral, the Montgomery family cried together. Not in separate rooms. Not hiding their pain. Together. And Renee, watching from the doorway, saw what she'd been praying for, the beginning of healing. But just as the family started to piece itself back together, a bomb dropped. Child Protective Services knocked on the door. An investigation had been opened. Thanks to the viral video and the media storm, the state was questioning whether Marcus was capable of caring for his sons. They had 30 days to prove the boys were safe, or the triplets would be removed from the home. Marcus hired the best lawyers money could buy. But money couldn't erase the video. Couldn't silence the protesters. Couldn't undo months of documented chaos. CPS sent a caseworker, a stern woman named Ms. Patricia Brennan, to evaluate the household. She interviewed the boys separately, observed their interactions with Marcus and Renee, and took notes on everything. The boys, terrified of being separated, tried their best to act normal. But trauma doesn't disappear overnight, and Ms. Brennan saw through the performance. "Mr. Montgomery," she said during her final evaluation, "I see a man who loves his children. But love isn't enough when children are in crisis. These boys need professional intervention, structure, and frankly, proof that this environment won't continue to harm them." Marcus felt the walls closing in. "What do I have to do?" "You have 2 weeks to show measurable improvement. The boys need to be enrolled in therapy. I need to see consistent routines, emotional regulation, and evidence that they're no longer a danger to themselves or others." After Ms. Brennan left, Marcus slumped into a chair, defeated. "I'm going to lose them." Renee sat beside him. "Not if we fight like hell, you won't." For the next 2 weeks, Renee and Marcus worked as a team. They established routines, morning breakfast together, daily therapy sessions, evening family dinners. Renee taught the boys healthy ways to express anger, drawing, journaling, physical exercise instead of destruction. Marcus stepped back from work entirely, showing up for his sons in ways he hadn't before. He read to them, played with them, sat with them through nightmares. And slowly, painfully, the boys began to stabilize. But the question remained, would it be enough to convince CPS? Ms. Brennan returned for her final evaluation on a cold November morning. The boys were nervous but calmer. The house, once a war zone, felt like a home again. She watched Marcus help Evan with his homework. Observed Renee guiding Carter through a breathing exercise when he started to feel overwhelmed. Saw Dylan laugh for the first time in her presence. After hours of observation, Ms. Brennan sat down with Marcus and Renee in the study. "I'll be honest, Mr. Montgomery. When I walked in here a month ago, I didn't think this case would end well. But what I've seen today is a family that's doing the hard work of healing." Marcus exhaled, tears pricking his eyes. "Does that mean?" "It means I'm closing the case. The boys stay with you. But," she held up a hand, "you continue therapy. You maintain the routines. And Ms. Clark," she turned to Renee, "I don't know what you did, but these boys trust you. Don't ever take that lightly." Renee nodded, her own eyes wet. "I won't." After Ms. Brennan left, Marcus turned to Renee. "For the first time in months," he smiled. "We did it." "No," Renee corrected gently. "You did it. You showed up for your boys when it mattered most." But Marcus shook his head. "I couldn't have done this without you. You didn't just help my sons, Renee. You saved this family." The weight of those words hung in the air, because both of them knew it was true. That evening, as they sat together watching the boys play in the living room, actually playing, not destroying, Marcus realized something that terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. He was falling in love with Renee Clark. 3 months later, the Montgomery house was unrecognizable. The boys were thriving in therapy, back in school, and slowly rebuilding friendships. Marcus had learned to balance work and fatherhood. And Renee had become so woven into the fabric of their family that the boys called her Riri, and refused to go to bed without her goodnight hugs. But Marcus knew something had to change. Renee was still technically the nanny, living in the guest room, keeping professional boundaries even though everyone knew this had stopped being a job months ago. On a Sunday evening in February, exactly 1 year after Olivia's death, Marcus gathered the boys in the living room. Renee sat on the couch, confused. "Boys," Marcus began, his voice steady but emotional, "a year ago, we lost the most important person in our lives. Your mom was everything to us. And for a long time, I didn't think we'd ever feel whole again." Carter, Dylan, and Evan watched their father, holding their breath. But then someone showed up who reminded us that love doesn't run out. That our family could grow without forgetting Mama. "And I know, your mom sent her to us." Marcus turned to Renee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Renee Clark, you saved my sons. You saved me. And I don't want you to be our nanny anymore." He opened the box, revealing a simple, beautiful ring. "I want you to be our family. Will you marry me?" The boys erupted, screaming, "Say yes. Say yes." And Renee, tears streaming down her face, looked at this man and these 3 boys who become her whole world and whispered, "Yes." If you made it this far, you felt something. Maybe you saw yourself in those broken boys. Maybe in Marcus, drowning in grief. Maybe in Renee, just trying to pay forward the love someone gave her. Don't let that feeling die here. Carry it with you. Because stories like this remind us that broken families can heal, and sometimes the people who save us are the ones we never saw coming.